My boyfriend thought acting cold would make me obsessed with him. I introduced him to his replacement. Jake and I had been dating for 8 months when he suddenly changed his entire personality overnight. We'd gone from texting constantly and spending every weekend together to him barely acknowledging my existence. At first, I thought maybe he was stressed about his new job or having family problems he didn't want to discuss. But the change was too abrupt and too complete to be natural. One day, we were planning a romantic weekend trip to the coast, picking out restaurants and booking a hotel room. The next day, he was giving me one-word responses and canceling our plans without explanation. When I asked what was wrong, he'd just shrug and say everything was fine. But his eyes had this weird, calculating look. The strange part was how systematic it all felt. Like he was following some kind of detailed script instead of actually experiencing emotions. He'd ignore my texts for exactly 6 hours, then respond with something brief and uninterested. He'd cancel our dinner dates, but always suggested rescheduling for later in the week, keeping me hanging on. He'd be affectionate for exactly 10 minutes when we hung out, then abruptly go back to being distant and checking his phone. It was too precise to be genuine emotional distance. Real relationship problems don't follow mathematical patterns like that. I started paying close attention to the timing of everything he did, taking notes on my phone about his behavior patterns. I also noticed he'd been spending unusual amounts of time on his laptop, quickly closing windows when I walked by. One day, when he was in the shower, I checked his browser history and found searches for things like how to make her chase you and create attraction through scarcity, and hot and cold dating strategy. That's when I understood exactly what was happening. Jake was using some pickup artist manipulation technique he'd learned online. The distant behavior wasn't natural. It was a calculated strategy designed to make me desperate for his attention. Instead of confronting him about it, I decided to play along while secretly working on something else. I started acting like his strategy was working perfectly, sending longer texts when he was brief, suggesting more dates when he canceled, generally seeming more eager and needy for his approval. But I was also spending time with someone Jake didn't know about, someone who'd been right there the whole time, watching Jake's behavior and getting increasingly disgusted by what he was seeing. Someone who actually treated me like a human being instead of a psychology experiment. We'd started talking more after I mentioned Jake's weird behavior, just casual conversations at first, but those talks revealed someone who was everything Jake was pretending to be. Confident without being manipulative, interested without playing games, honest instead of strategic about feelings. Our conversations moved from casual to deeper topics, and I realized I was looking forward to these interactions more than anything with Jake. While Jake was busy calculating response times and planning his next manipulation move, I was discovering what genuine connection actually felt like. The person understood what Jake was doing because he'd seen this kind of behavior before. He was appalled that anyone would treat a relationship like a chess game instead of just being authentic. We started meeting more often, and I felt more valued in those moments than I had in months with Jake. Last week, Jake showed up at my apartment unannounced, probably thinking his hot and cold strategy had run its full course and it was time to reel me back in with renewed attention. He walked in using his spare key and found us cooking dinner together, laughing and completely comfortable with each other. Jake's face went white when he realized who I was with, and that's when I told him exactly what I thought of his manipulation tactics and introduced him to his older brother Marcus, who'd already replaced him in every way that mattered. Jake freezes, his face draining of all color as his eyes dart between me and Marcus. The kitchen feels impossibly still, like we're suspended in amber, the pasta sauce simmering on the stove, the only sound breaking the silence. You planned this? Jake's voice trembles with shock, his eyes narrowing as he processes what's happening. The calculated coolness he's been perfecting for months has vanished completely, replaced by raw, unfiltered emotion. Marcus steps closer to me, placing a protective arm around my shoulders. The gesture is gentle but deliberate, and I feel myself lean into his warmth. I know about your manipulation tactics, Jake, Marcus says, his voice steady but firm. The calculated response times, the hot and cold treatment, all of it. Jake's expression morphs from shock to betrayal, his eyes locking onto his brother's face. I need to talk to her, he says, pointing at me. Alone. Right now. It's not a request but a demand, the same controlling tone I've grown accustomed to over our 8 months together. I shake my head. No. Whatever you have to say, you can say it with Marcus here. Are you serious right now? Jake's voice rises, hands clenching at his sides. My own brother? You're choosing my brother? He turns to Marcus, rage replacing shock. You betrayed me. Your own blood. For what? To steal my girlfriend? Marcus doesn't flinch. This isn't about stealing anything, Jake. I've been watching your behavior for weeks. The way you've been treating her like she's some kind of experiment instead of a person with feelings. You don't know what you're talking about, Jake snaps. But I can see the panic behind his eyes. He's been caught, and his carefully constructed manipulation is crumbling around him. I saw you timing your responses on your phone, Marcus continues calmly. 6 hours, right? That's how long you'd make her wait before texting back. I saw the stopwatch. 10 minutes of affection before you deliberately pull away. Who does that? Jake's mouth opens and closes, no words coming out. For once, he hasn't calculated his response. You were researching manipulation tactics online, I add, finding my voice stronger than I expected. I saw your browser history, Jake. Hot and cold dating strategy. How to make her chase you. Did you really think I wouldn't notice the pattern? Jake's face contorts with anger. He glares at us both, then suddenly lunges for the door. You deserve each other, he spits, slamming it behind him with enough force to rattle the windows in their frames. The sound echoes through my apartment like a thunderclap. Marcus and I stand in silence for a moment before my phone buzzes in my pocket. I pull it out to see Jake's name on the screen. The first of what will become a flood of messages. How could you do this to me? With my brother? You've been seeing him behind my back this whole time? The texts keep coming as Marcus and I finish cooking dinner in awkward silence. The pasta is slightly overcooked now, but neither of us really cares. We sit at my small kitchen table, the weight of what just happened hanging between us. I'm sorry it went down like that, Marcus finally says, pushing his food around on his plate. I knew he'd be upset, but it's not your fault, I assure him. My phone buzzes again, and I glance down. How long have you two been? The message trails off, as if Jake couldn't bring himself to finish the thought. I put my phone face down on the table, but it keeps lighting up with new notifications. You should probably block him, Marcus suggests gently, at least for tonight. Give him some time to cool down. I nod, picking up my phone again. The messages have grown increasingly desperate. 36 in total now. Some pleading, some angry, some trying to guilt me. I block his number without reading the rest. He's not going to let this go easily, I say, setting my phone down again. You know that, right? Marcus reaches across the table and takes my hand. His touch is warm and steady. Nothing like the calculated affection Jake would dole out in precisely timed increments. We should document everything, he says. All the manipulation patterns you noticed, the browser history, the timing, just in case. In case of what? Marcus's expression grows serious. In case Jake decides to escalate things. I know my brother. When he feels like he's losing control, he can become unpredictable. I think about Jake's face as he slammed the door, the raw anger in his eyes. For the first time, I feel a flicker of fear beneath my relief. Jake had spent 8 months calculating exactly how to manipulate my emotions. Now that his tactics had failed, what might he do next? Okay, I agree. Squeezing Marcus's hand. We'll document everything. My phone lights up again with a text from an unknown number. Jake, using someone else's phone to bypass the block. I turn it over and see just 3 words that make my stomach clench. This isn't over. Monday morning arrives too soon, bringing with it a knot of anxiety in my stomach that no amount of coffee can dissolve. I've barely slept, jumping at every sound outside my apartment window, half expecting to see Jake's face peering in. Marcus texted me twice already this morning, checking if I'm okay. I told him I'm fine, which is only partially a lie. I'm organizing files at my desk when a collective hush falls over the office. I look up to see Jake standing in the doorway, an enormous bouquet of roses in his arms, his expression a perfect mask of contrition. My coworkers' heads swivel between us like they're watching a tennis match. 2 minutes, I say quietly, walking past him toward the small conference room. I can feel everyone's eyes on my back as Jake follows me, closing the door behind us. These are for you, he says, holding out the flowers. I don't take them. What are you doing here, Jake? I needed to see you. You blocked my number. His voice is soft, wounded. It's the same tone he used whenever he wanted me to feel guilty for having normal boundaries. We need to talk about what happened. There's nothing to talk about. We're done. Jake places the flowers on the table and steps closer. You don't understand what's happening. Marcus is manipulating you against me. He's always been jealous of what I have. I almost laugh at the irony. What you have? You mean the relationship you were deliberately sabotaging with your mind games? That's what he wants you to think. Jake runs a hand through his hair, looking genuinely distressed. Look, I know I messed up. I read some stupid advice online about keeping relationships interesting. It was a mistake, but it wasn't some calculated evil plan like Marcus is making it out to be. I saw your browser history, Jake. You were timing your responses on a stopwatch. His face darkens momentarily before the mask of contrition slides back into place. Please, just give me another chance. We can talk this through without my brother poisoning your mind against me. I need you to leave, I say firmly. This is my workplace. As I turn to open the door, Jake grabs my wrist. He'll do the same thing to you, you know. Marcus has always taken what's mine and then discarded it when he gets bored. I pull my arm free. I'm not a possession, Jake, and this conversation is over. I walk out, feeling the stares of my coworkers as Jake follows, still carrying the rejected flowers. He pauses at the door, loud enough for everyone to hear. I'll be waiting when you realize what a mistake you're making. The texts start before lunch, not from Jake, but from his friends. First Ryan, then Alicia, then 3 others I've only met once or twice, all with variations of the same message. Jake is devastated. He made a mistake. He deserves another chance. By afternoon, Marcus calls. Have you seen Jake's post? He asks without preamble. What post? On Instagram. He's posted this long thing about your misunderstanding. and how his own brother betrayed him. I pull up Instagram and find Jake's profile. There it is, a black and white photo of Jake looking pensively out a window. Beneath it, a paragraph about how sometimes the people closest to you can misinterpret your intentions, and how heartbreaking it is when someone you love chooses to believe the worst about you. He's making it sound like I overreacted to some minor issue, I say, anger rising in my throat. It gets worse, Marcus says. Check your messages. I switch to my DMs and find several screenshots from Marcus. They're messages Jake has sent him, ranging from guilt-tripping, "How could you do this to your own brother?" to outright threatening, "You'll regret taking what's mine." He sent these to most of our mutual friends too, Marcus explains. And my phone's been blowing up with people telling me what a terrible brother I am. That night, my phone rings with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answer. Is this the woman who's destroying my son's relationship? The voice is sharp, accusatory. Mrs. Reynolds? I recognize Jake's mother's voice from the few times we've spoken. I raised those boys to look out for each other, she continues without acknowledging my question, and now you've come between them. Jake is absolutely devastated. Mrs. Reynolds, Jake was. I don't want to hear your excuses. Marcus has always been jealous of his brother's relationships, and now you've played right into that dynamic. She hangs up before I can respond, leaving me staring at my phone in disbelief. The next evening, I spot a familiar car parked across from my apartment building. Jake is sitting in the driver's seat, pretending to look at his phone, but obviously watching my entrance. I hurry inside, texting Marcus immediately. Jake's outside my building. Again? Marcus replies. That's 3 nights in a row. We should file a harassment complaint. I don't want to escalate things, I type back, even as unease settles over me like a cold blanket. 2 days later, I receive a friend request from someone I don't recognize, Sophia Daniels, with only 3 posts and 15 friends. Something about the profile picture seems vaguely familiar, though I can't place it. Out of curiosity, I accept. Within minutes, my phone buzzes with a message from Sophia. Did you know Marcus has a pattern of stealing his brother's girlfriends? You're not the first. Attached are screenshots of social media posts showing Marcus with different women, dates carefully highlighted to suggest overlap with Jake's relationships. I block the account immediately and call Marcus. Jake created a fake profile to message me. I tell him, he's trying to make it look like you have a history of stealing his girlfriends. Marcus sighs heavily. I was afraid of this. Look, there's something I haven't told you. Jake has done this before, the manipulation tactics, the calculated responses. His last 2 relationships ended because of it. He even did the same social media campaign, making himself out to be the victim. Why didn't you tell me this before? I thought. I hoped he'd changed, and I didn't want to bias you against him when you first mentioned the weird timing patterns. That night, a final message arrives from Jake's actual number, somehow bypassing my block. Choose me or destroy both our lives. This is your last chance. I show Marcus the message, and we both stare at the screen, the threat hanging between us like a storm cloud. This isn't normal breakup behavior, Marcus says quietly. As I nod in agreement, I can't help but wonder how I missed the warning signs for 8 months. The calculated affection, the timed responses, they weren't just quirks. They were the behaviors of someone who saw relationships as games to be won, not connections to be nurtured. And now that Jake was losing, he was changing the rules entirely. The sound of aggressive pounding on my apartment door jolts me awake at midnight. I sit up in bed, heart hammering against my ribs as the banging continues, followed by Jake's slurred voice. I know you're in there. Another series of thuds. Is Marcus with you? Open the goddamn door. I reach for my phone with trembling fingers, texting Marcus. Jake's here, drunk, pounding on my door. His response comes instantly. Call building security. I'm on my way. Jake's voice rises, echoing down the hallway. I just want to talk. 2 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Something crashes against my door. It sounds like he's kicked it, and I hear my neighbor's door open across the hall. Hey man, it's midnight. People are trying to sleep, a male voice says. Mind your own business. Jake snaps. This is between me and my girlfriend. Ex-girlfriend. I call through the door, finding my voice. And you need to leave, Jake. Now. His laugh is bitter, unhinged. Oh, she speaks. Tell Marcus to come out too. I know he's in there. I'm calling security, my neighbor warns. Jake's response is a stream of obscenities followed by another kick to my door. I curl up against my headboard, phone clutched in my hand, listening to the muffled voices of other neighbors emerging from their apartments. 5 minutes later, the elevator dings, and I hear the authoritative voice of our building's security guard. Sir, you need to leave the premises immediately. There's a scuffle, more shouting, then gradually fading protests as they escort Jake away. I don't realize I'm crying until I taste salt on my lips. This can't continue, Marcus says the next morning, pacing my living room. He's escalating. I cradle my coffee mug, the sleepless night evident in the dark circles under my eyes. I know. We need to confront him directly, set boundaries, make it absolutely clear that this behavior stops now. The thought of facing Jake again makes my stomach clench, but I know Marcus is right. Avoidance isn't working. If anything, It's making Jake more desperate, more unpredictable. What do you suggest? Neutral territory, Marcus says. Public place with witnesses, but quiet enough for a real conversation. Maybe that coffee shop near your office? I nod slowly, and we bring the evidence. The screenshots, the browser history. I'll text him, Marcus says. Coming from me, he might actually show up. The coffee shop is busy enough to feel safe, but not so crowded that our conversation will be overheard. I arrive 15 minutes early, securing a table near the back with a clear view of both entrances. My folder of printed evidence sits on the table like a loaded weapon. Marcus arrives 5 minutes later, squeezing my shoulder reassuringly before taking the seat beside me, rather than across, a united front. He's coming, he says. Said he'd be here at 2. Jake arrives 10 minutes early, which surprises me. He looks composed, clean-shaven, hair neatly styled, wearing a button-down shirt I bought him for his birthday. Only his eyes betray him, bloodshot and hollow with dark circles beneath them. He slides into the seat across from us, his movements controlled, deliberate. For a moment, none of us speak. Thank you for coming, I finally say, my voice steadier than I expected. Jake's gaze flicks between us, lingering on Marcus's hand resting protectively near mine on the table. Didn't really have a choice, did I? Not if I want to clear up this misunderstanding. This isn't a misunderstanding, Marcus says quietly, and showing up drunk at her apartment at midnight isn't going to fix anything. Jake's jaw tightens. I was upset. You were threatening, I correct him. You scared me, Jake. I just wanted to talk to you without him poisoning your mind. He leans forward, his voice softening. I miss you. I miss us. There is no us anymore, I say firmly, and there won't be. Not after what you did. Jake's expression shifts, vulnerability replacing the practiced composure. I just wanted you to appreciate what you had. The admission hangs in the air between us. I open the folder and slide the first page across the table, a printed screenshot of his browser history, showing searches for hot and cold dating strategy and psychological tricks to make her chase you. Appreciate what I had? I ask. You mean the relationship you were deliberately sabotaging? Jake glances at the paper, then pushes it aside. That was just relationship advice. Everyone looks up tips online. Tips? Marcus interjects. Jake, I saw you timing your responses on a stopwatch. 6 hours exactly before you text her back. Jake's eyes widen slightly, darting to his brother. You were spying on me? I noticed, Marcus corrects. There's a difference. I push another page across the table. Screenshots of text conversations where Jake's responses came exactly 6 hours after mine, down to the minute. And the affection, I continue, 10 minutes of being loving and attentive, then suddenly cold and distant. I timed it, Jake. It was never random. Something in Jake's expression cracks. He runs a hand through his hair, disheveling his carefully maintained appearance. You don't understand, he says, voice barely above a whisper. Everyone leaves eventually if you don't control the dynamic. The raw honesty of his statement catches me off guard. For the first time, I glimpse the insecurity beneath his manipulation. That's not how relationships work, I say gently. You can't manipulate someone into staying. It was working, Jake insists, a desperate edge to his voice. You were trying harder, caring more. I was pretending. I admit. I figured out your game weeks ago. I was just gathering evidence while I decided what to do. Jake's face contorts with a mixture of betrayal and realization. So you were manipulating me back? No, Jake. Marcus cuts in. She was protecting herself while figuring out how to safely end things with someone who was psychologically manipulating her. Jake's voice rises suddenly. You had no right to interfere. This was between me and her. Several heads turn our way, and I notice the coffee shop manager glancing over with concern. Lower your voice, I warn. We're trying to have a civilized conversation. Civilized? Jake laughs bitterly. There's nothing civilized about my brother stealing my girlfriend. He didn't steal me. I'm not a possession. You're both lying to yourselves, Jake says, his voice growing louder despite my warning. This isn't about my manipulation tactics. This is about you two wanting each other and using this as an excuse. The coffee shop manager starts walking toward our table. I place my hand on the folder, ready to leave if necessary. Jake, please, Marcus tries. This isn't helping anyone. You know what? Fuck this. Jake stands abruptly, knocking his chair backward with a crash that silences the entire coffee shop. Every eye turns to us as he leans forward, hands planted on the table. You'll regret choosing him over me. He'll do worse. With that final threat hanging in the air, Jake storms out, shouldering past the approaching manager without a backward glance. The silence that follows feels suffocating. I gather the scattered evidence with shaking hands as the manager asks if we're okay. We're fine, Marcus assures him. Sorry about the disturbance. But as we leave the coffee shop, Jake's parting words echo in my mind. Not a promise or a prediction, but a desperate attempt to plant a seed of doubt. He won't let this go easily, I say as we reach Marcus's car. Marcus takes my hand, his touch steady and reassuring. Maybe not, but we'll handle it together. I nod, hoping he's right, but unable to shake the feeling that this confrontation, necessary as it was, has only pushed Jake further into his spiral of obsession and control. 3 weeks of silence from Jake feels like a strange gift, unsettling but welcome. I keep expecting to see his car outside my building or receive messages from unknown numbers, but there's nothing. The quiet aftermath stretches like a thin layer of ice. I'm afraid to put too much weight on it. Maybe he's actually moving on, I tell Marcus as we cook dinner together in my kitchen. It's become our little ritual, chopping vegetables side by side, sharing stories about our days. No calculated affection, no stopwatch timing responses, just two people genuinely enjoying each other's company. Marcus looks skeptical. I hope so, but that's not typically Jake's pattern. I know he's right. The abrupt silence after Jake's dramatic exit from the coffee shop doesn't match his previous escalation, but I'm determined to enjoy this reprieve, however temporary it might be. Let's just enjoy tonight, I say, bumping his hip with mine. One day at a time, right? Marcus smiles, and it reaches his eyes in a way Jake's calculated expressions never did. One day at a time. Our relationship is still new, cautious. We're both aware of the complicated foundation we're building. On the shadow of Jake's manipulation looms over us, making us hyper-conscious of our own behaviors. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if Marcus is being genuine or if manipulation runs in the family. Then I feel guilty for even thinking it. My phone buzzes on the counter, and we both freeze, the same thought crossing our minds. But the name on the screen isn't Jake's. It's Ryan, I say, surprised to see Jake's best friend contacting me. What does he want? Marcus asks, tension evident in his voice. I open the message. Hey, I know we're not close, but I'm worried about Jake. He's not answering calls, barely leaves his apartment. This isn't like him. I show Marcus the text, and his forehead creases with concern. That's not what I expected. Should I respond? Marcus hesitates, then nods. Maybe, but carefully. I type back, I appreciate your concern, but Jake and I aren't in contact anymore. Has he talked to anyone about what happened? Ryan's response comes quickly. He won't talk about it, just stays in his room, barely eating. His mom's freaking out. I feel a twist of guilt in my stomach, despite knowing I'm not responsible for Jake's choices. What do I say to that? Marcus reads over my shoulder, his expression troubled. Suggest he might need professional help? This sounds like more than just a bad breakup reaction. I take a deep breath and type, I'm sorry he's struggling. This might be more than friends can help with. Has anyone suggested he talk to a professional about what he's going through? The 3 dots appear and disappear several times before Ryan's message finally comes through. You think he needs a shrink? It's not that serious. Typical, Marcus mutters. Mental health is still a taboo with his friends. I respond one last time. Sometimes we all need objective support, especially after relationship endings. I hope he gets whatever help he needs. I set my phone down. The mood in the kitchen shifted. Despite everything Jake put me through, I can't help feeling concerned. 8 months of my life were invested in him, even if the relationship was built on manipulation. You okay? Marcus asks softly. Yeah, I say, though I'm not entirely sure it's true. Just processing. A week later, an email arrives from Jake. My finger hovers over the delete button, but curiosity wins out. The subject line is simple. I'm sorry. The email is lengthy, surprisingly thoughtful, and lacking the manipulative undertones I'd grown accustomed to detecting in his communications. I've been trying to write this for days. Nothing sounds right, but I need to say I'm sorry not to win you back or change your mind, but because you deserve an apology. What I did was wrong. The calculated responses, timing my affection, all of it. I found these forums online where guys talked about relationship game and maintaining the upper hand. I convinced myself it was normal strategy, not manipulation. I'm not making excuses. I know I hurt you. I know I betrayed your trust. And I know showing up at your apartment and workplace was inexcusable. I've started seeing someone, a therapist, not a girlfriend. Turns out I have some serious issues with control and abandonment that I need to work through. I don't expect forgiveness or even a response. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to be better. Jake. I read it 3 times, searching for hidden manipulation tactics, but find none. When I show it to Marcus that evening, he looks equally surprised. This sounds genuine, he admits reluctantly, the therapist part especially. Do you think I should respond? Marcus considers this. What would you want to say? That I'm glad he's getting help, that's all. Really. Then say that, Marcus says, short and simple. My response is exactly that, acknowledging his apology, expressing support for his therapy journey, and wishing him well. I don't mention our relationship or Marcus. What I don't expect is Jake's follow-up email, asking if Marcus would be willing to meet with him and his therapist present. Part of my healing process is making amends and addressing family patterns. He writes, no pressure, just something to consider. Marcus is understandably hesitant. I don't know, he says when I show him the email. This could be genuine, or it could be another manipulation tactic. The therapist being there changes things, I point out. It creates accountability. After several days of consideration, Marcus agrees to a single session. I offer to go with him for support, but he gently refuses. This needs to be between brothers, he explains. Some of our issues predate you. The day of their meeting, I'm more nervous than Marcus seems to be. He calls me immediately afterward, his voice thick with emotion. It was intense, he says, but good, I think. Jake's actually doing the work. The therapist helped us talk about some childhood stuff, competitive dynamics between us, things I didn't even realize were affecting our relationship. Did he mention me? I can't help asking. Only in the context of his manipulation patterns. He took full responsibility, didn't try to justify anything. Marcus pauses. He seems different, more self-aware. 6 months pass, life settling into new patterns. Marcus and I have grown closer, our relationship deepening beyond the strange circumstances of its beginning. Jake remains on the periphery of our awareness, but no longer as a threat. Occasional updates from family members suggest he's continuing therapy and focusing on his new job. When Marcus's mother invites us both to a family dinner, I'm apprehensive but agree to go. The prospect of seeing Jake again makes my stomach knot with anxiety. We don't have to go, Marcus assures me. Mom will understand. No, it's time, I say. The surprise comes when Jake arrives at dinner with someone, a woman named Elise, with bright eyes and a warm smile. He introduces her simply as my girlfriend, without the possessive edge that used to color his words. Throughout dinner, I find myself watching their interactions closely. Jake listens when she speaks, actually listens instead of waiting for his turn to talk. When she disagrees with him about a movie they saw, he doesn't try to overpower her opinion or dismiss it. The changes are subtle but unmistakable. Marcus squeezes my hand under the table when Jake laughs genuinely at something his mother says. It's an acknowledgement of the change we're both witnessing. After dessert, Jake approaches me while Marcus helps his mother clear the table. My body tenses instinctively, but his posture is non-threatening, his eyes clear. Can we talk for a minute? He asks quietly. We step onto the back porch, maintaining a respectful distance between us. The night air is cool, crickets chirping in the darkness. I wanted to thank you, he says, surprising me. Thank me? Jake nods, looking out at the darkened yard rather than directly at me. For forcing the confrontation, for not letting me get away with it. He takes a deep breath. I would have kept destroying relationships without realizing why. I'm glad you're doing better, I say sincerely. It's hard work, he admits, unlearning those patterns, facing the reasons behind them. But worth it. He glances toward the house, where Elise is helping with the dishes. She knows everything, by the way. About what I did, about therapy. Complete transparency. I smile, genuinely happy for him. That's how it should be. When we return inside, Marcus gives me a questioning look, and I nod slightly to let him know everything's okay. Later, as we drive home, Marcus reaches for my hand. That was unexpected, he says. In a good way, I agree. The brothers have begun rebuilding their relationship, tentatively at first, now with growing confidence. It's based on honesty rather than competition, vulnerability instead of control. And watching them navigate this new terrain, I realize that sometimes the most painful confrontations lead to the most necessary healing. Jake's manipulation tactics, the calculated 6-hour response times, the precisely timed 10 minutes of affection, the hot and cold strategy he researched so diligently ultimately failed because real connections can't be engineered through formulas. They're built through authenticity, even when that means facing uncomfortable truths about ourselves. As we pull into my driveway, Marcus turns to me with a smile that still makes my heart skip. No stopwatches, no strategies, he says, as if reading my thoughts. Just us. Just us, I agree, and lean in to kiss him.